All right, so I just thought I'd make a little video about what MAT is and why it's so effective and why it's important to utilize in your own health and fitness. So MAT stands for Muscle Activation Techniques. And effectively, it's just a biomechanical system to check and see, are your muscles working and are they working effectively? So why that's a really important thing to have is that if your muscles are not working effectively, it's going to lead to some pain, some joint impingement, some issues and imbalance that over the years or even in a short amount of time can lead to some pretty serious and significant injuries. So one example that I like to use is I just kind of use this tent pole analogy. So pretend this pen is a tent pole sticking straight up off of the ground. And in order for this pen or this tent pole to stay vertical, you have to put a minimum of 3 tie-down straps all the way around it. So in this position, if my 3 fingers here were the tie-down straps, this would keep this tent pole, again, assuming these are anchored to the ground, in a stable position. However, if I removed even just one of these, the tent pole is most likely going to lean one direction and be out of balance, okay? So just for this example, we'll do a quick little math equation, but let's pretend this tent pole weighs 25 pounds, and instead of 3 tent lines anchoring it, I have all 5 of my fingers as tent lines coming down. So what that means is that each finger is responsible for 5 pounds of force each. 5, 10, 15, 20, 25. So in this example, this is a stable environment. But if I cut or removed 3 of those tent lines away, all of a sudden the tent pole is going to be leaning this way, and these 2 tent lines are now going to have more than double the force that they were originally intended for, because now this one has 12.5 pounds of force and this one has 12.5 pounds of force, and now it's kind of leaning this way, right? So in order to rebalance this tent pole and get it back into a supported area, I have to re-anchor this one, and this one to finally kind of create that equilibrium around that tent pole. So I hope you can kind of see where I'm going with this, but this is a way to kind of check your entire body. So this little example could be your femur bone attaching up into your hip socket. And in that area, you have 30 different muscles that surround that joint. Some of those muscles pull you this way, some of them pull you this way, some of them pull you this way, some of them rotate your hip kind of in and out. And so that's one of the reasons why we need to make sure that all of these muscles are working well together. Because if they don't, it can lead to these little strains, these little feelings of tightness, like anywhere. It could be in your lower back, it could be on the side of your hip, the inside of your hip, it could be above or below your knee. So anywhere where there are muscles, this is why MAT is so important, is that you need to be able to figure out where those muscles are imbalanced and where you can reactivate them to kind of create that synergy or that alignment again. And personally, I've had a number of injuries kind of throughout my, sport and fitness career. One of the worst ones was actually where I tore the arch, kind of a muscle on the bottom of my foot playing basketball. And going through that process, it was extremely painful. I was told to stretch my calf because my calf was super, super tight. I was told to do a couple of these other corrective exercises for my foot, and it just was not getting better. And quite honestly, my story is that I went and I was introduced to MAT, and literally within 30 minutes of my first session, the person that worked on me worked on my hip, not even anywhere near my foot, and they found that a bunch of these muscles were offline around my hip. And like I said, in about 30 minutes, I was able to finally stand up and walk without the pain on the bottom of my foot. So that's just one quick example of, what this can do, but it's a system of checks and balances. You have to look at ranges of motion, you have to check and see and kind of pull on or test all of those little tent wires or tent lines surrounding each joint. So that's effectively what MAT does, is that we go through a systematic approach to try and figure out and see, it's this muscle and this muscle that seem to be offline. And just as a quick example, there's about 206 bones in the body, but there's over 860 muscles that move those bones. So it's extremely important to try to balance that and figure that out so that you can kind of create this synergy around, the body. And in addition to that, if you have one area, whether it's your shoulder, your elbow, or something just doesn't feel right, you lift something up and all of a sudden it just kind of like, gives out, those situations can lead to other even emotional things. I mean, you start feeling like, oh my gosh, I can't trust the shoulder anymore. And it starts leading to other compensations throughout the body. But also you have this feeling of like insecurity. And for me, like with my leg, my whole left leg completely atrophied. My quads started to get smaller, my hamstrings got smaller, my glutes got smaller, my calf got huge. And it was a very, disconnected, situation. And I felt horrible. I knew I couldn't play basketball using that foot. I knew that I wasn't able to go out and just walk around with my friends. I wasn't able to pedal on my bicycle because of the pain and the injury. I mean, in my 20s, I thought I might be in a wheelchair by the time I'm 40 if this is the way that this keeps up. But I will say that now, being in my 40s, that being able to utilize MAT, it's actually made me much stronger. I've been more mobile and I feel great, because one of the things that happens if you have these little injuries is it leads to inflammation. So everything from like heart disease to, everything from stress and chronic fatigue, all of this is related to inflammation. So one great thing about kind of balancing out your body is, number one, yes, you can actually move and do the things that you enjoy doing. But number two, there's actually kind of more of an internal effect where your body is more in balance. It's not constantly feeling kind of like, it's all out of whack and that your other systems are being affected by it. So again, that's one of the main reasons that MAT is so important, is just to balance out your body and to get that feeling that you can actually move and do the things you enjoy doing.